All right, we're live. So this is a very special Struct Sales Live. I have two terrific persons with me. I have Ian, I have Craig from another part of the world, in another time zone, in a totally different area of the world. Welcome to Struct Sales Live.
Thank you, Oliver. Great
Thanks
to be
for having
here.
us.
Yeah. So we are going to, so this is actually going to be a live, and it's also going to be a podcast. So we like repurposing content and publishing on different platforms, as do you guys. So for today, I'm going to try to not talk too much and just stay in the background and let you give us all the insights and nuggets. And for those who might not know who you are, I'm thinking like maybe a minute and a half presentations and short background on who you guys are and what we are going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you the microphones and let you tell the listeners and viewers a bit more about yourselves.
Excellent. All right. My name's Ian Jacob, and with me is Craig Bailey. We actually run two competing agencies in Australia in the same city. We met at a HubSpot user group, would be maybe 9 years ago, Craig, maybe even 10. We used to pass each other, and it was probably 8 years ago we went to Inbound together. Didn't really know each other. At that time, the office in Australia was just kind of kicking off, and HubSpot in Australia did a special event where it was a great event, actually. They did a few things with us in New York and then in Boston, and I think we just became friends over that time, and we were by ourselves. So we sat together at different sessions. And I remember turning around to Craig and I said, Craig, how could we not go back to Australia and not start a podcast? So this is the last session of Inbound. I put this crazy idea out to Craig. After the session's finished, I said, let's go get a picture with Dharmesh and Brian. So we go and do that. And then we walk away and we come back to Australia, right? We come back, we connect with each other the week later. We start recording over, I think, Skype at the time. And I think about 3 episodes in, I asked Craig, I said, Craig, where do you live? And I realized he lives 20 minutes away from where I live. And I'm like, why are you doing this online?
Wow, that's unreal.
So then so we started catching up together and preparing the show, we used to spend the whole day together, I think, and we used to prepare the show during the day, have dinner, and then we used to record in the evening. And it kind of became a thing, and we built a great relationship. And I think what has been the base of it is we both have similar values. We both trust each other, and I think the biggest thing is Craig's one of my best friends now, and so it's just one of those things. We have somewhere else to go and bounce ideas off and talk to each other. We're never alone. So if I'm in a hard situation, I think I talked to Craig the other day and I didn't know how to solve something. And I'm like, Craig, you need to help me out here. And so he was like, yeah, let me just tell me what you need. And so he was able to walk me through it, help me sort it out. So I'm forever thankful and grateful for that. But there it is. That's how HubShot started.
Wow, that's really interesting. And did you when you started the podcast, was it more like what was the purpose of the podcast when you started? Was it to get out and reach an audience? Was it to be able to talk more in between the two of you? Why did you start the podcast?
I often say to Ian, one of the best benefits of the podcast was we just get to hang out together. So I think that drives it. I mean, and we've talked before hitting a record on this, Oliver, just about our agencies. We're fortunate we're in small agencies. And so we have that freedom where it's not a dollar value or ROI against every thing that you do. Oh, is the podcast returning money? So the goal wasn't really around marketing for that matter. It was just, let's chat about HubSpot. We had tons of stuff to play with and share. And so, you know what, when Ian was describing that, it's interesting that it was only 8 years ago that HubSpot was only just opening an office here in Australia, and how quickly they've grown. Yeah. We lose track of how quickly HubSpot has grown. It's less than a decade, and they've gone from very small. And by the way, at that, I bet at that inbound, they hadn't even mentioned the CRM, which is something
No,
we're going to
there was
talk
no
about
CRM.
a bit later in the show. It was still just a marketing platform with a bit of a blog and CMS piece that was kind of sticky tape and rubber bands holding it together. And look where it's come in such a short.
So
space.
how long have you been doing stuff with HubSpot, working with HubSpot? Like, when did you first get to know and start using HubSpot yourselves? Which year was that?
I'm going to say about 2013, 2014. I think it's similar for you, Ian. It's around 10
I think
years.
me
Yeah.
just after. Yeah.
That's interesting because we onboarded as partners 2014. My first inbound was 2015. We were actually proposed to my soon-to-be wife, and yes, we're not married yet. It's terrible, but I did on stage, so it became a very viral social thing. It was really fun,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's a really good. So I was one of the breakout speakers. So when I did my session, I proposed. It was really cool. So I have really fond memories of inbound, and I've been since maybe 4 or 5 times. So yeah, so we go way back, all the 3 of us, which is really interesting. And what we are going to talk about today, and what you are going to focus on, is like what's happening with HubSpot. Where are we going? Like you mentioned, there was no CRM. All of a sudden, we had a CRM, and then it became a really competent and really good competing CRM to other options out there. And now we have a customer platform. So, hey, stage is yours. I'm just going to hand over to you and see if I can point you in the right direction. Not that I need to, but hey, give us. We have an hour until 10:30 local Swedish time. Give us like, what's HubSpot? Where are we going? What kind of experience do you have? What are customers saying? Insights and nuggets. So, hey, stage is yours.
Go, Craig. Take it away.
Where should we start? I think it's interesting to review a little bit about the history of HubSpot. Let's talk about that for a second. Then talk about what their current messaging is in the market and how we interpret that, where we think they're going. And that these are, by the way, worth mentioning, these are just our opinions. We have no insider knowledge on this. So don't listen to this and think we're the voice of HubSpot. This is just an outside opinion. But I think there's actually value in that.
But you should listen. Should listen to Ian and Craig. You really should listen.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I think there is value in hearing outside perspectives because
Sure.
I'm sure that inside HubSpot, they're very clear where they're going, and leadership knows where they're going, and they've communicated that to staff. It's always interesting to know what the market thinks the company is going. And even in our own small companies, we know this, right? We're, as kind of running our companies, we try and communicate to our staff and our own customers to the market. Here's what we're all about. It's clear in our heads, but then we talk to customers and they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize you do that." I'm like, "Oh, I feel like I've been saying this for years." So I'm pretty sure that's at a bigger scale with HubSpot. They're like, they're pretty sure where they're going. Externally, I think it's confusing, and we'll talk about that today in the show. Some of their messaging. Part of it is around they're testing new messaging in the market. They're always doing that. They're always testing things. HubSpot's one of the best examples, I think, of a tech company out there that's always testing things, gathering feedback. We'll also talk about how we can interpret some of the things that they talked about in their keynotes at the recent Inbound conference. Just the fact that they talked about certain things is an indicator of what they're hearing back from the market. So we'll talk about some of those things as well. But shall we start with a little bit of history, Ian? What's your if you were to think of HubSpot over the last 10 years, how would you think of it?
I think of it, and I always tell this to people, it started off as a marketing platform, right? And I would probably say it was a premium marketing platform at the time. It's one of the things people used to always tell me, "Oh, gee, that's expensive." And over time, I just think you realize the value of having a great platform or tool at the time and how much they have grown. And I think what I loved about it was Brian and Dharmesh, who are the founders, really had a vision for what it is, and they weren't afraid to make a great product. And I kind of saw that clearly Dharmesh is very good in technical terms, and I still think that he knows what he's good at and he knows what he's not good at, and he has made, like, he's been an integral part of making a great product. And I think they've grown. Needless to say, sometimes it doesn't make sense, but I think we all know that sometimes what other people are doing is not necessarily what you should be doing, and it's sometimes going against the conventional wisdom that gets you the bigger win, right? And I think that's kind of what HubSpot has done over time in terms of how they've rolled out product and what they're doing and how they've evolved. So yeah, I've liked how it's gone. I think coming from a technical background and somebody that likes new things, I have actually enjoyed seeing what do I say? Enjoyed all the new features and testing new things. And I think you've got to have a mindset of progression and change. You can't think, oh, it's going to be like this and that's how it's going to be. And I don't like that the menus change now. And so I think you've got to have a progressive mindset when you're using HubSpot. But I also love that they've kept things consistent. And as they've grown, I think things are at this inflection point at the minute. But it's one of those things where they've just gone, okay, I think at the core of it is that customer data. And I'm glad that that's never changed. And whatever they're doing is still that, because when I think about all the other systems that we deal with on a daily basis that has data in different places that don't match up, that don't make sense, that doesn't give a customer view, I still think that that's kind of the winning formula. And if they never change that, they'll keep winning with what they're doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm kind of laughing by myself here, because the features and the change menus, and all of a sudden you can't find what you were looking for like a week before. But I mean, there is always, I think, a plan for why they're doing this and moving things around. And it always comes back to, as you mentioned, Ian, to the customer focus and focus on the customer and not on your own things and processes and stuff. So everything they do up until now has been really, really interesting, and they're moving in the right direction. So yeah.
If we think back over the history, Oliver, what's your kind of, if you were to try and summarize the last 10 years, because you've worked with it for that long?
Yeah.
How do you think of it?
Yeah, so my point of view is a bit different from, I mean, there are nowadays, when we started, there weren't really very, very many agencies like doing HubSpot stuff. 2014, there were a few, like, we didn't have the global ones we have today. We have maybe a handful of really global large agencies, which initially were kind of the competitors to my small shop and firm, because HubSpot was like growing and competing with the big dragons of CRMs and stuff. We're not, we might mention names, but let's not do it now, but let's mention names later, like complex CRMs with a lot of challenges. But I think that, like, where we are now, where we have hundreds of partners, if not thousands, around the globe, the system has evolved into something more complex, but also more competent than before. And coming from a sales background, I was kind of a different breed of partners when I started, because I've done a lot of sales training. I do a lot of speaking assignments, and I do sales. So I was really missing the CRM when we onboarded as a partner. It was like marketing. Wow, cool. So I was introduced to marketing, and all of a sudden I became a marketer. So people call me marketer today, and I don't really know if it's good or bad, but hey, it's the same thing for me, sales and marketing. So for me, the big shift was when the CRM actually evolved and became a real CRM. And I think it's really exciting where we're going now with the customer platform and taking it to the next level. So yeah, I've been on the HubSpot train for basically as many years as you, and I've enjoyed it every single day. What I'm seeing now, however, and we're going to be like very, very honest and straightforward here, is that HubSpot is becoming a large company. They got like they did the IPO a few years ago, which means that they have investors, money is involved in a different way, and you can kind of see that it's not like the Salesforce or the Microsoft Dynamics of the world, but we're getting there. I don't know when, but we're closing in, which is both a good thing and a challenge, because, I mean, I think everybody wants to move up market and start to support larger clients. At the same time, it's kind of a balance, because when you do that, you need to not focus as much on the small shop, Brian and Dormesh thing that got everything started. And we don't have Brian as CEO either, so we have management change and stuff. So let's talk a bit about that, like moving into the future, and what's your take? But
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that. If I can just quickly go back to the history, I think you're right. It was marketing platform, and then there was that pivot. Not really a pivot, actually more of an expansion into CRM. And I remember being at that inbound where Brian on stage was unveiling it, and he said, HubSpot is now a CRM company. I distinctly remember him saying that. Yeah. And although it seems so long ago, as we chatted about before, it was less than a decade. It was probably 6 years ago. I can't remember. Then there were a few other points, and then they were like, oh, and now we've got Service Hub. And they got this whole hub concept going out. And they've had Operations Hub, which is, I don't think it's been a roaring success. And they've tried other things like Business Units and now Commerce Hub, which tend to just be repackaging as opposed to actually brand new things. So the real pivot was when they were like, we're a CRM. So that kicked things off in a new direction. I think that's been interesting. And they are at an inflection point now, as Ian said, where they're trying to grapple with this, stay with a smaller business and mid-market, the simplicity, the intuitiveness, just the joy to use it, with the demands of enterprise. And I think they're struggling with that, as any company would, as they go through this phase. They've also entered this kind of growth phase. And before I was in marketing and HubSpot, the 20 years before that, I was in the Microsoft space. I saw a very similar thing happen, especially with the whole, partner program and the way sales worked and everything. And then I kind of later, after I got out of that career and more into marketing and HubSpot, I've kind of seen that in a smaller version play out. And I can kind of see where HubSpot is now and their partner program and what they're working. It was kind of where Microsoft was maybe 20 years ago. So they're in that growth phase, and they've got to make compromises. It's a difficult time. They've got to try messaging in the market. Plus, added to that, there's economic conditions we'll talk about in a second. And there's new trends. There's this whole AI thing that seems to have come out of nowhere, but of course it's been happening for years, that they have to embrace and communicate as part of their product. So there's a lot of competing forces or not competing forces, but competing for attention with limited resources that a company like HubSpot has to then package for both small through to mid to enterprise customers. Very difficult task they have.
And you mentioned the partner ecosystem and the partner program, which has been immensely successful for HubSpot. Like having somebody with feet on the ground who can support and help the clients to get the most out of the platform has always been a super high focus from HubSpot. I don't have any figures. What I've heard and seen the last few months is that, and obviously reacted to myself, is the change in the partner program, the setup, everything from commission and co-selling with sales reps from HubSpot and stuff. We're moving in a different direction. I don't really know if it's good or bad yet, but what I'm seeing is that, at least from my perspective, I see that a lot of clients really appreciate the local support they can get from partners. But again, if you're moving up market and going against enterprise, a challenge which you mentioned, Craig, are the partners they have today, like the likes of your and my companies, are we kind of set up to be able to sell enterprise deals to large corporate clients, or are they looking for specific kind of partners? Do we need to evolve as partners to be able to close these kind of deals together with HubSpot? What are they doing with there are being some rearrangements in terms of responsibilities and roles internally at HubSpot as well? I think it's super exciting. I'm coming from a sales background, so I love I've always been teaming up with sales reps on the HubSpot side to drive deals together. I love selling. But I'm thinking more like the traditional agencies who are even more focused maybe on selling their services and the license. Yeah, that might be interesting, but hey, we want to get our consultants from the bench and start to deliver. And they might have different partners apart from HubSpot. Not like we only work with HubSpot. So I think it's super exciting times. But as you said, Craig, it's going to be like the upcoming 6 to 12 months or 18. It's going to be super exciting and see where we at. Because as you said, inflection point, yes. Are they going to continue to strive for the enterprise segment? Are they going to be happy where they are? Like, yeah.
I
You know
have some
what?
strong opinions on this, but I'll step aside for a little bit for Ian because he has some very considered views on this.
You know what I find interesting, Oliver, is that not so long ago, I guess we get kind of told what's happening, and then we see what's happening in the market space. And I think there was a push to go enterprise, and then I feel like it came back a bit to, hey, let's go CRM suite, the Pro tools, right? So we're not quite at enterprise. Let's focus on that. But then what I hear them saying externally is a bit different in terms of, let's sell enterprise, even though we know that there are some shortcomings with the product. And Craig will elaborate on this a bit more. So I sometimes feel a little bit confused with what we're told and what we hear. And I don't know whether this is to do with where everything's at, but I feel there's a bit of confusion because it kind of is one thing one year and it's another thing the next year. And then you hear something else different altogether the year after that. So I definitely think there's a bit of disjointedness in there. And you're right. The company has grown massively. And I have sometimes feel the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. But, I guess those things get ironed out as time goes on. So,
sure. Yeah.
Maybe let's talk about a few things here. And again, this is just my opinion. And by the way, I'll say I'm a HubSpot shareholder, so I want them to do well. So even though what I'm going to say is that perhaps critical of them, it's not actually saying stop doing it. It's just an observation. So I just want to make that kind of clear because I think sometimes HubSpot people think I'm having a go at them unfairly. But I don't think we can underestimate the impact of economic conditions. All right. So if you look currently in Australia, I don't know really how this plays out globally. Maybe Oliver, you can talk about in Europe and how it fits. But if you look at business in Australia, enterprise is very stagnant. Enterprise has stopped. Mid-market is booming. They've got confidence again, but enterprise is not. Everything's paused. And so we've seen over the last couple of years, I'm not an economist, but most people know this. It's kind of common sense. We saw all the tech companies overhire, accelerate, and now they're pulling back. And so at the enterprise level, you've got all these companies that were spending a lot to hire and spend on projects, really pulling back. Inflation, of course, and costs and interest rates, etc., will play into that. And so you've got HubSpot a couple of years ago when enterprise was booming, going, right, we're going to target enterprise. Let's go for it. Economic conditions change, and so they've got to say, in many ways, they've got to say, whoa, hang on, enterprise is pushing back. They're kicking the deals down the road. Okay, mid-market's where we go back to. So that's actually just good business response by HubSpot, I feel. I don't think it's indicative of their overall direction where they're aiming for. I think it's more indicative of economic conditions that we're in at the moment. Okay. Again, I'm not an economist, but that's just how I kind of interpret the tea leaves. Now, one of the follow-on or knock-on effects from that is how that impacts the partner program, because there's a massive cost to having all of these people at HubSpot looking after all these hundreds or thousands, perhaps, of partners. Many of them, or the majority of them, who are very small. And so, and probably not contributing much actually in the way of sales. So I don't know where the 80-20 rule fits in here, but I'm pretty sure someone inside HubSpot has said, well, is zero interest rate free money's over. We've got to be careful on costs. Where are we spending a lot of money? Looking after a ton of small partners that are not contributing much to overall goals. So HubSpot, I would assume, is consolidating down and saying we're only going to really focus on the big top 10% of partners. So pulling together a few threads and what you raised, Oliver, they do want to enter into enterprise. Are you going to get a small partner to do that? No, you'll want to go for a bigger partner. And two, well, economic conditions mean we can't support all these partners, so let's just focus on the big ones anyway. So small partners like me, like Ian, like yourself perhaps, I would imagine our days are numbered realistically, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I would assume HubSpot, we are not a priority for HubSpot, and totally understandable. So I'm not going to scream about that. I'm just going to say I can see where that's going. And we've seen similar, harking back to Microsoft days, similar. They've gone focus for the bigger partners. So really, if you want to make it as a partner, I would say you've got to be big if you're going to survive 5-10 years time. The other thing, and then I'll hand back to you, but the other thing I think about is the types of partners in the ecosystem. I kind of feel there's three main partner types. There's the ones that sell and onboard. There's the ones that maintain and perhaps rescue. And then three, there's integration partners. I know it's a bit more nuanced than that, but let's choose those three. And so, for example, our agency, we're definitely in the second type. We don't sell a lot of HubSpot. We're often called in to rescue. So we're one of those partners that are like, those companies that are, we've got HubSpot, we inherited it. The person who installed it's gone now. What do we do? We've got this big renewal bill coming. The CFO is questioning it. So they'll get in a partner like us to come in and help optimize. And there's lots of partners in that boat. Now, do you think HubSpot's really going to focus on them from a sales initiative? When no, they probably should, because we're going to reduce churn, but we're not going to directly lead to a lot of revenue up front. So I'd imagine that again puts partners in that second tier in the crosshairs to be lost. So putting all those together, market economic conditions, the push to enterprise, the different types of partners, that's kind of how I see it, pulling them together. So how it's going to affect HubSpot and the partner ecosystem. I don't know. Does that resonate? Do you agree?
I'd add to that, Craig.
Ian, what's your take on this?
No, I'll add to that because this year at Inbound, I saw a lot about the app partners, the people building stuff into HubSpot, and a big focus on them, because I think we're in this place where we would all know that someone can build something and HubSpot might actually end up building on top of that or building that into the product, and then those people not having their business anymore. So they were trying to definitely be more transparent about that and where they will build, where they won't build, where they will partner. So I think that's come up quite a bit in the last year, because everybody has their livelihood, right? They think that there's a great idea and they build something, and the next year they could be out of business. So I think they are aware that people that are building things into HubSpot to make it the platform that it is, they have to be wary of all of those people who are building things in and out. So it was really interesting to see them speak about that and what they're doing about it. So I think they were trying to foster the relationship with the app partners more this year. And if we talk about partners like ourselves, they were kind of bringing everyone together. And I thought it was a bit funny because I always thought a partner was a partner and everybody was there. And they were like, oh, this year we actually got all our partners in the room. And I'm like, what? All the partners? I thought we were always together. But it was all the app partners in with all the agency partners that are delivering services. So that was really interesting how they've kind of bundled us all into the same bottle, so to speak. And I think that that's interesting because it clearly is a changing of what's going on and what's happening in the marketplace. So,
so many nuggets and so many questions and so many things to add to this. I think from a perspective you mentioned, so as an end client using a HubSpot partner to get the most out of you mentioned 3 different kinds of partners, which I totally agree on. I would say that ourselves, we are in the sell and onboard and maybe even specifically more sell because of my background when I founded the company. And I think there has been, during these 10 years, there has been shifts in the partner program as well. We've gone from getting full commission on helping clients to buy licenses to split the commission and kind of clashing with sales reps from HubSpot who want to have the commission, and I as a partner who actually manage all of the selling process, I got only half and stuff. But we're back in a really good position and state now. I'm very confident that the partners, you raise a really interesting question in regards of the investment HubSpot needs to do to manage all the small partners. However, if you are a partner, and if you as a client are working with a partner who actually can help you choose, and who actually from a HubSpot perspective can sell licenses without having to involve a lot of resources from HubSpot, that's kind of a self-working automated way of selling. So from my perspective, I'm super happy that we are actually really good at finding clients and closing clients, which is a pretty unique way of doing, and we do onboard and stuff as well. But I think a word of advice to HubSpot partners out there who want to stay relevant is to get really connected with the reps and the direct sales reps at HubSpot, build cases together, and all with the focus of helping the client at the end. I've been through different cases where the sales rep from HubSpot is doing a few demos, diving into functionality in the tool, and then I close the deal with a client and we onboard the client, and everybody's happy because the client can get support from different parts of the ecosystem. And what's happened also in HubSpot now is that some roles have disappeared because it was a double cost for HubSpot, which is I think it might be a good thing in the long run, because maybe those weren't needed and are not going to be needed moving into the future. So we have a partner, we have somebody selling from HubSpot, and those two together, I think that's enough to support the customer. So I love that we're having a discussion that is not only, yay, HubSpot is the solution for everybody and there is no option. I love it because it gives us a new insight in terms of where are we going and stuff. And you, at the same time, Craig, you mentioned like 5 to 10 years. We're not talking like 6 months. So we're moving into the future. But I'll give you something that we're doing to support our clients even more, is that we're trying to build a best-in-class agency or consultancy, which means that we have HubSpot as a CRM. We have ClickUp as a project management system. We have PandaDoc for e-signing. We have so what we're trying to do is to find our ideal customer, give them all the tech tools and stuff they need to have to be successful and to grow predictably, and also onboard them in the different platforms. So we've moved from going all in HubSpot and not selling anything else but HubSpot to complementary services and tools, which helps our clients even more. So we're not doing anything else. We're not doing Salesforce or Microsoft. We're still with HubSpot, but we're adding other services and products. I think, and that's been appreciated by most of our clients.
Just to comment on that, I think it's a really good strategy. The question I have for you is whether you've got the bandwidth to do it. You obviously do, because you've decided to do it. We've actually narrowed our focus because a lot of agencies, the partners came out of digital agencies. So doing marketing, they're doing paid ads, they're doing social. Oh, we're going to help you with a bit of email marketing. Now we're going to get you going with HubSpot. Spread themselves too thin. And we kind of felt that ourselves. We used to do a lot of the paid stuff and social for clients. We've really narrowed down. We're just doing HubSpot. It's all about automation, efficiency, sales enablement, all that kind of thing. And so my question for you is, how do you manage that? Because sure, you probably use ClickUp in your own business, but then to then go in to clients and not only need to be an expert in HubSpot, but also ClickUp and others. How have you managed to balance that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And we just recently onboarded with ClickUp and PandaDoc. So it's pretty new for us. Okay. But what we're doing is, again, we're focused on helping the client select the best tool, get the right license to support them in their growing of their business. And sometimes we give the onboarding to PandaDoc, or we have ClickUp do the onboarding if we don't have the bandwidth. So we're giving the client the option to choose, because again, my focus is to support our clients to choose the right solution and product. And hey, I want to earn some money and I want to sell some licenses, always knowing that this is the best fit for the client. So I'm giving them we have these 5 partnerships. When we meet with sales managers, we just onboarded with a new recruitment company here in Stockholm. So when we talk to a sales manager who wants to recruit salespeople, I give them a name of the sales manager of this company, and they set up a meeting, and then we get a commission on selling these services. So we support our clients in the best way we can. So sometimes we do the onboarding ourselves. Sometimes we let the provider and the partner do the onboarding. And this is ongoing work. And the only thing we're focusing on is to give our clients the best experience. And if we're not able to do the onboarding, we'll give it to ClickUp, and they'll do it, as long as the client gets the best experience in doing this. And we're building as we grow, so it's kind of a daily evolving thing, which is super fun, because I don't want to stand still. I want to move in any direction, as do you guys.
Yeah, great perspective. I just love that the attitude is the best thing for the client. I mean, I wish all companies could get back to that. It sounds obvious, and most of them say it, but they don't do it. So it's good to hear doing that.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so like looking into the future, then we were talking a bit about that. What do you see? Like, what's the next thing from HubSpot? Do we have any new like pivot thing, or what are you seeing? What do you think they need to do to do the next like CRM launch? Where do you see HubSpot focusing if they want to continue to increase market share and continue to support even more clients? What's your take on that?
I thought I'd take a step backwards, actually, Oliver.
Okay.
More in terms of, we touched on AI and the AI powered platform, which Craig will tell us about shortly. But it was really, I guess, we're talking about history and so on. I don't know whether people actually realize that HubSpot has been acquiring AI and machine learning businesses since about 2016 and integrating them into HubSpot. So out of curiosity, I too am a shareholder, and I went to have a look to see because there was a point where they were quite like they bought PySync, for example, that syncs data in.
Yes.
They bought a business in 2017 called Motion AI and Kenvi around AI-powered growth automation and B2B sales. And I think that's probably what's more of this, what we see in the sales tools now. One was Motion AI was to do with chatbots, still could do with some improvement. And then you've got Exena Data in 2019, where it's again about machine learning and so on. So it's quite interesting. Like, it's become a thing now, but I kind of feel people don't realize that this has actually been running in the back of HubSpot probably for the last 5 years, as with data goes on. And I remember when they actually launched Sales Hub to give some of those reports or analytics or predictive analytics. I remember them saying how they anonymize data across multiple portals to then figure out, well, is this a good lead or is this not a good lead? And I thought that was really interesting at the time. And I guess now we're really seeing everyone's aware of it. And so I guess if we talk about what's in the future, like they call it what is it called? The customer platform, Craig? Yeah, the customer platform, right? Yeah. And it's all about AI. Let me just go back to the website. Maybe you should share it, Craig. Share that page.
Yeah, sure.
Where they talk about the HubSpot Customer Platform. Now, this is interesting because this is the homepage.
You'll see now, but I'll switch over to this one. Yeah.
And you'll see even on the homepage says new, the HubSpot Customer Platform, right? But if you're actually talking about, which I just saw just before we started this live, so here it's all about CRM, right? It's about CRM for growing businesses. But then if you click and go through to the HubSpot Customer Platform, it talks about HubSpot AI-powered customer platform, right? Where you put your customers first to grow your business. And it's quite interesting. It's all AI-powered. So they've obviously gone, okay, there is something here. How do we make this work for people? And this is where I think they're going. This is, like, as Craig rightly said, this is a signpost on that road to where they're heading. And I don't know whether, like, I hadn't actually thought about it, but Craig rightly said this. It's like they're trying to work out where they're going and they're testing things out. Is that right, Craig?
Well, that's how it appears from our side.
Yes.
So I think internally they know very clearly, but I think many people are confused by the message. Oh, they're talking about customer platform. What's that now? Oh, it's powered by a smart CRM. Oh, so it's HubSpot. Oh, so CRM is a subset of a customer platform, is it? Oh, but no, it's about AI. Oh, okay. And we can talk about it. And in perhaps the answer is who cares, right? It doesn't really matter in some ways, because most customers are just like, is it going to help me do my job better?
Correct.
Are we going to be more successful? So they don't really care. So sometimes when we overanalyze these things, which is fun, by the way, it might just be more, interesting than it is actually beneficial. But I think it's the thing for me and for you, Oliver. You were talking about where you're going as an agency, and I think Ian, as we've chatted, it's like, well, I want to know where HubSpot's headed, so that I can accommodate and work not only for where my own business goes, but how I'm guiding my customers. And I feel like, oh, I know what to tell them this year, but I don't really know if I'm pointing them in the direction for 5 to 10 years down the track. And HubSpot is not that sticky. There's plenty of companies who'll get it and they'll churn. The churn rate is there like any other SaaS tool. So it's not as though you once you get onto HubSpot, you can't get rid of it. Unlike other platforms, I will say, Salesforce, try getting rid of that if you're in a big mid to large company. It is sticky. It's there for a long time. So part of me wonders whether embracing this customer platform terminology and talking about this is trying to get them into a position where they're stickier as a platform for the business. I'm not sure. I'm just reading the tea leaves here, but that doesn't really help me guide our customers any better.
I think when talking stickiness, there could be a good thing and a bad thing from a customer. And I always think about, like, from a customer perspective, when you mention Salesforce and when you mention, I'll give you an example on like Eloqua. You have like these large enterprise tools and systems. If we're going all the way up to SAP, we're like, now that's sticky, but it's not nice at all. People want to leave. In many cases, they can't because it's too expensive, it's too complicated. I think the reason why HubSpot is positioning the product in the way they do is, I think they see it's always been, this is HubSpot, this is the nice look and feel, it's easy to use, we're not locking people in the same way. You don't need to have 150 hours of consultants to be able to set up a sales process. It's like, it's a pretty simple to use tool. Everybody can do it. It's built for marketers. I love that because a marketer is very aesthetic and look and feel, and it's a different thing. But now it's as you said, are we moving into becoming more sticky and maybe less attractive to clients, or should we stay where we are and build on what we have? So I think it's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I love HubSpot for the simple reason that it's not the large enterprise CRM with all the work and investments and complexity around it. It's moving in that direction. But as you said, we don't know. But again, I think it's important to again mention that we're talking like 5 years, 10 years into the future. I don't even know if I'm going to have my company in 5 years. Maybe I've been super successful and I've retired early, or I'm doing something else. Like, I'm focusing more like here and now for the next 6 to 12 months. And if we're doing 6 to 12 months, or even a bit longer into the future, I think we're in a good direction. AI. Which you mentioned, I think that is also super interesting. Predictable analytics has been in HubSpot on the enterprise level for how many years? Quite a few years. PieSync, automation. Like, for most people out there, I think AI is the same thing as automation. So if we're thinking AI automation, as you said, HubSpot has been doing this for many, many years and building an AI platform. So again, predictive analytics. It's been telling you, based on XYZ, you're going to expect this result 5 years ago. But is that AI? Well, it depends on who you're asking and how deep you dive into AI. But
can I mention something on that? I think it's interesting. I was going to mention before when Ian was talking about, we interviewed Brian Halligan on our podcast many years ago, and it was episode 100. I remember it because it was a milestone for us, and we managed to get Brian at the time. So we're up to more than 300 now. So this was many years ago. Yep. And that interview is still worth listening to because it wasn't locked. It's almost an evergreen episode because Brian is such a big thinker. I don't think many people realize this because he dumbs it down. I mean that in a nice way. For audiences, people don't realize how well he thinks into the future. Anyway, if you go back to that episode, you can read the show notes. We asked him in that show about AI. We said, is HubSpot going to look into AI, right? This is me naively thinking. He very gently said, well, we've been doing that for a couple of years now. And he gave a whole bunch of examples, predictive analytics, even things email sends, all of this kind of data that they were doing. So that was 5 or 6 years ago. So it's definitely relevant then. They've built on it. I think it's interesting. I think it was 3 years ago, on one of the keynotes, someone, it might have even been Brian, said, by the way, we're not even going to mention AI at the conference once this time. And it's like how quickly times have changed. They've been talking about it years before, then it went out of favor. Now it's rushed back into favor. Everyone's talking about AI. And of course, the keynotes were AI. Here we go. Literally. So that's an interesting, I think, context overall to HubSpot. They never miss a beat. They're not behind. They've never missed anything. Perhaps just as observers, we didn't realize.
And maybe that's the thing, Eiley. I mean, we look 5 years into the future. I mean, if you asked me 2015 about the CRM and where we should be with the CRM today, with the new features and the prospecting functionality and everything, it's like I could never see that. I was actually kind of frustrated as a sales person to not have a really cool CRM functionality like the prospecting feature now, which should have been there from the beginning. But seeing that HubSpot came from another background, a marketing background, into CRM, it's very logical. But I think that maybe one of the reasons why there isn't a very concrete 5-year plan to the market from HubSpot is that they want to be able to do stuff like from 6 months to another 6 months without having written in stone exactly what's going to happen in the 5 upcoming years. And this is something I like very much with how it's a bit more complicated if you're a really large enterprise provider and even though some leaders at these large companies can get up on stage and turn the boat like with a speech where people have planned for 6 months to do a launch. And then I'm thinking about Mr. Ellison quite a few years ago where he got up internally on a keynote to the team. And I actually worked with his company, one of the partners, and he kind of changed the direction in 5 minutes. Everybody who was planning for 6 months what to do, he just went the other way. But normally, large enterprise companies don't do that. But there are always exceptions. But this is what I like with HubSpot. You never really know. And all of a sudden, things happen. As you mentioned, Ian, functionality in the tool. Where do I find the menu, which I saw yesterday, only 4 hours ago? It disappeared. Where is it? What happened with the PieSync? Oh, so PieSync is now Operations Hub. Okay, I get it. Interesting. So a lot of things happen, and I really like that. So short summary, looking into the future, not very clear. But hey, I want to stay on for the ride for quite some time, for now at least.
And I'd like to add, like, do customers really care? Like, they're using the tool. I don't think any of our customers have said, "Oh, where is HubSpot going?"
No,
they're like,
no.
I'll say something on that in a second.
Yeah. So no one has really asked us where they're going. I think people do say, "Why is this functionality not there?" Or can't we do this better? Can we customize this? And I think they slowly roll out. But I don't think anyone's ever questioned or asked me, where is HubSpot going? I think as long as the tool or the platform meets their needs to get their job done, they're happy using it. The day I think they can't use it to get their job done, that's when they start asking questions about where it's going.
And this is, I'm going to let you, Craig, I'm going to let you in just like 30 seconds. This is why I think the partners, even the small ones like ourselves, are super important for the clients, because it's, to be honest, and not to clash with the sales reps at HubSpot. I love you guys, I do. But the focus from them is just to close the deal, and move on, because they don't do the onboarding. They don't take care of the client afterwards. If we as partners can help them and also take care of them afterwards and answer the questions today and 6 months into the future, which functionality should I use to achieve my outcome and my end results I'm looking for? As long as they can get those questions answered, we're good. And I agree, Craig, you're going to give us some examples where you might disagree, but it's very seldom, if ever, I get the question, where do you think HubSpot is going to be in 5 years?
Right. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's a common question. So I do agree with that. But some of our clients are making, there's a decision you make about HubSpot. You say, oh, look, are we just with it for the next couple of years, next year or two? Or is this going to be a platform that we build on? So we have had these conversations with a number of clients. They already have HubSpot, but they're saying, we're starting to make the strategic decisions around the business. Can you tell us where HubSpot's going, especially around Operations Hub and integrations and pieces and what's available? Because we're wondering whether we just stick with HubSpot for a year or we renew for 3 years, or whether we're already thinking about, we've got to go to Salesforce or another platform. So I don't think it's, should we get HubSpot for this year? It's, what is our overall plan? And I wouldn't dismiss that. And also, I don't think that's at the enterprise tier. The clients I'm thinking about are mid-market. They're growing, they're scaling, they're making important decisions on their tech stack for the next 5 years. Sure, it might change, but they want to know, where's HubSpot going? And so I'll give you some examples from previous years. This is just a very simple, probably a bit in the weeds one, but it's like, what's HubSpot's plan around data centers? Are they going to have Australian-based data centers? I don't know, because at that time I didn't know. We have clarity on that now from HubSpot. But that was a very important thing, because they were going to build their whole platform. There's privacy concerns, right? So maybe small businesses don't really care about that kind of thing, but in mid to large, that's certainly the case. What's HubSpot's view around privacy? That was really, before the whole GDPR thing. And that's actually one area where HubSpot was kind of a little bit slow to respond. When they did put all the GDPR stuff in, it was done very well, I have to say. The execution was excellent. But early on, I was thinking, do they have a plan on this? They're not communicating it, and that's what clients were asking. So I think they're just a few examples, but overall strategy. But to your point, it's not common. It's not like every call I get on, but it's.
I do agree on those things, though. Privacy, GDPR, whereas the data center base, before there was one in Europe, I sometimes got the question, like, we don't want to have, do we need to have our data in the US? Is there any way we can move it to the European Union or to EU, which is possible now? So we have 7 minutes left of the show. We're gonna take. I know. We're gonna grab like 5 of those to do a Q&A. But before we do that, we've been discussing pros and cons and stuff. But again, I mean, this is a HubSpot live and podcast. So let's end with, hey, why HubSpot? Like the classic why HubSpot. So what are the supreme cool reasons why you actually should, for the upcoming 12 to 24 months at least, go with HubSpot and choose that over, let's say, HubSpot and Microsoft or even Eloqua and those kinds of tools? What is the HubSpot positioning from your perspective? Why should we go with HubSpot? 2-3 minutes. What's the elevator pitch?
Go, Craig.
There you go. I feel like I've.
Okay, Ian, you go.
Why go HubSpot?
Yeah.
It is easy to use. Your data is in the one place. And for majority of businesses, you can use most of the tools to get a great result. And I think one of the biggest hurdles we come across is people get tools in their businesses, but people don't use the tools. Yeah. And just like you use your email on a daily basis, I think HubSpot is one of those tools where people, when they use it, they see results. And actually, that was probably my story when I started. I actually helped a friend implement HubSpot, and it transformed his business because he used it. And that is what got me on the journey and the path. And I still think to this day that is a key thing that a platform offers.
That is so good. I normally say 360 customer overview, one truth, data in the same place. Everybody can access the same reports. You can automate the reports. You can see the same information. You don't have to pay for every single seat. There are free versions, and they are really, really good. They have like maybe 60, 70% of the functionality. You don't have to pay like in other systems. And I do love the CRM, and now specifically with the prospecting part. I do a lot of sales onboarding for our clients, and they use HubSpot CRM. They use Sales Hub. They don't use the other CRMs because it's too complicated. It's like they actually use it and they like it. They like sequences. They like to be pinged when somebody reads the email. This is probably the one functionality from when I started selling 2014, which is still super relevant today. Like you can see when somebody reads your email and what? Yeah. We've been doing this for 10 years. It's a thing, even though it's not as common today, but still, yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. Wait, 1 second, Craig. I'll tell you one thing that I do love, and people don't realize it, is if businesses are spending a lot of money on paid advertising and they're not using HubSpot, they're missing out, because the ability to see what a customer does, what ads they're clicking on, and then how you could potentially remarket or push that into ad platforms is massive. I think a lot of people fly blind, like they spend tens of thousands of dollars and they sometimes or get a report saying, oh, there were this many conversions, but actually not knowing who those conversions are. And I think every time we implement HubSpot and people are spending money on ads and we can say, hey, these are the actual contacts, like these are people, that just changes everything.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's take the last few minutes, some Q&As, and again, like just write your questions in the comment section, and we'll be happy to answer them. Just go ahead, and as you do this and prepare for the questions, where can the listeners and viewers find you guys? Well, you have your podcast. Can they connect with you on LinkedIn? How and where do they find you?
The easiest thing is to search for us on LinkedIn, or if you go to HubShots.com, you'll be able to connect with both Craig and myself, and you can listen to the podcast as well, and all good podcast players. And that's probably the easiest way to get in contact with us.
Yeah, HubShots.com. It's got links to all our YouTube channels and LinkedIn and all of that. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So a question then: when you analyze a HubSpot portal, what are the most common challenges you face?
Craig, that's yours.
We could do a whole show on this.
This is not a 1-minute answer, Oliver.
Give us the nuggets, like 2-3 top things you find when you do a portal review.
Yeah. Okay. So most of it will be under the umbrella of they aren't using all the tools and they haven't connected things in. So Ian mentioned paid ads. The number of portals we go in. Oh, have you connected Google Ads and LinkedIn? No, I didn't realize you could do that. Oh, yeah. Just go here to ads connect. Do you realize you can have your social channels? Oh, no, I didn't realize. Oh, it gets even worse. Do you realize you can just connect your inbox and your calendar? Oh, I didn't realize. So we've gone into portals where people are creating notes on a contact where they've copy and pasted an email out of whatever, Outlook or Gmail, into a note on a contact. We're like, oh, you realize you can. So they're probably the most common things, connecting stuff in. But then often it's around simple functionality, views on all the objects. That's a common interface. The timeline, they go to the timeline. They don't realize you can turn on all of the different activities. We've gone in and they've said, oh, we look at contacts, but we don't know what they're doing. And we just show them, oh, you realize on the filter in the middle column on contacts, you haven't shown all the different activities. Blows their mind. Now you might think, oh, that's silly. The number of times we see it, we're like, oh, okay, there's a user interface thing. Anyway, there's some of them. We could do a whole show on this.
Yeah. No, but that's good. Those are really, really good examples. I have another one I actually got off show on LinkedIn here, and that question is, is it like, what are the benefits of, and we're also having discussions with clients now, what are the benefits of going enterprise on a license level as opposed to the professional? Because some of the clients feel that specifically the Marketing Hub is way more pricey than the professional hub. So if they're going, and another thing I want to tell everybody before you answer is that in many cases you just need one enterprise hub to get access to most of the functionality going cross hub. In many cases that's the case. But what would you say? What kind of a client would you be? What kind of requirements would you have to go enterprise and maybe not stay with a professional? Because going from free to starter to professional, that's automation, workflows, and stuff happens in the background. But moving up to enterprise, what's the thing with enterprise that clients are missing and they should be aware of?
Yeah. So I think it's a good summary. Starter to pro, automation. Pro to enterprise, attribution. That's how we often position it. So we could dive into that. But Ian, did you want to mention?
No, I think that's exactly it, Craig. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
It is attribution. And I think also, Oliver, I think people make the mistake thinking, enterprise must mean I have to be an enterprise. We have businesses with 2 or 3 people in it that use enterprise HubSpot because they want attribution, right? They're spending a lot of money in lots of different places and they want to know what's working. And even, go on, Craig.
Can I second that? Because that's the problem with calling it enterprise. It's almost, so I have to be a certain size. We often talk, no, it's about sophistication. You can be the biggest company there and unsophisticated. You don't need enterprise. But you can be a small company, very sophisticated. You want to unlock attribution, go to enterprise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's probably on the marketing side, Oliver. On the sales side, I think a lot of it comes down to the way you can automate using sequences or using automation to kick off sequences. That's usually one of the things that people...
Gee, that was smart to keep that in enterprise.
Sorry?
They were smart to keep that in enterprise. That's the one thing that will often win sales and enterprise.
Correct. So sales enterprise.
We've had quite a few discussions regarding that. Can we start a sequence not manually? Yeah, you can, but it's an enterprise functionality.
And it's enormously valuable, so they will pay for it.
It is. So definitely, it is.
Keep it there, I guess. Much as we might.
Definitely. Hey, I'm not going to take more of your time. We've been at it for 1 hour, 1.5 actually, with preparation as well. It's been a blast. I'm so glad we could do this. Again, this is going to be on our LinkedIn page. This is going to be repurposed as a podcast as well on the Hub Tribe podcast. So if this is obviously in English, we have other guest episodes in English. Otherwise, it's in Swedish. And our HubSpot community is called the Hub Tribe. We have a Slack community. We have a podcast. And we do lives like this. So again, super happy to have you here. I hope the viewers and listeners have had a lot of value from this. I'm totally convinced they have. So again, thank you. And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you,
Thanks
Oliver.
so much, Oliver. And thanks, Emily, for organizing it all.
Yes.
Loved it.
Thank you, Emily.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.